Hello everyone, how are you today? Give everyone a chance to catch up if you haven't already done these things. So you want to start with a canvas. This is an 8 by 10. If I hold it this way, this canvas is 8 by 10, which is pretty much the size of a piece of paper, okay? If you have a canvas that's a little bit bigger, that's fine too. But I am using an 8 by 10, and I made sure that I turned it this way. So you want it the long way, horizontal. You don't want it this way. So we're holding our canvas this way today, okay? So make sure it's in this position. The first thing I want you to do is with a pencil, and make sure you have a good eraser. I honestly don't like the erasers that come on the back of pencils. They just make marks. So if you have a separate eraser or the kind that you can put on the back, I always like to buy the ones that you can put on the back of the pencil instead, or just a big separate one. So find a good pencil and a good eraser, and the first thing I want you to do is with your canvas or paper the long way like this, horizontal, I want you to find the middle of your canvas, okay? And what you're going to do is, you can probably see if I hold it up close, I made a slightly wavy line, and we're going to erase this later. Wavy line through the entire canvas. So let me back it up. I don't want to trace that in marker right now because I'm going to end up erasing this part, but for now, find the middle of your canvas, make sure you're holding it the horizontal way like this, and make a slightly curvy line through the entire canvas, and make sure it's in the middle, okay? So everyone do that first, and then I will walk you through the rest, I promise. Make sure you have a slightly wavy line. You can see my pencil line going across the center of the canvas, and make sure that your canvas is the long way. Do not hold it this way, okay? Now we're going to work on his head, okay? I don't expect you guys to have rulers, but if you have a ruler handy, that kind of helps a little bit, just to make sure that the head is the appropriate size. You don't want to make it too small or too big, okay? So see the wavy line that we made? I want you to go in the middle, find the middle of that wavy line. So if I back up, you can see where my finger is. It's in the center right here. You're going to go above that line just a tiny bit. You see what I did in marker? You're going to go above this wavy line just a little bit, and you're going to make a line right above it that's approximately 3 inches. Again, I don't expect you to measure this. If you have a ruler, you can kind of measure it. And if you notice too, this line isn't perfectly straight. It kind of curves up a tiny, tiny bit. It is not a straight line. But if you kind of try to measure it, it is about 3 inches long, okay? So we need to do the one that goes across the middle of the entire canvas first, and then find the middle, go up above it a tiny bit, see how those lines are really close, and make another line that's very slightly curved right above it. It's about 3 inches long, okay? So I'll give you guys a little while to work on that. Try not to go ahead. It is so important that you don't go ahead, because if you do, you're going to do lots of erasing. And if you are using a canvas, you're going to notice right away that it doesn't erase that great on a canvas, and it ends up looking kind of messy. So again, try to stay with me and press very lightly with your pencil. That way it erases better and doesn't make a mess, okay? Okay, perfect. So now that we have this line right here for the bottom of his head, we're going to do the top of his head. So the top of his head is a nice big curve. Make sure you go high enough with this curve, or else you're not going to have room for his face. You're going to end up having to squish his face in there, and we don't want to have to squish all these details in a small area. So make sure when you're doing this curve, make it pretty high. So a nice big curve. I'm going to back up again so you can kind of see the dimensions a little bit better. This is an 8 by 10 canvas, which is about the size of a piece of paper, and I'm holding it the horizontal way, not this way, okay? So you can kind of see how big I made the head, okay? So I'm going to give everyone about 30 more seconds to make sure you have the head drawn out, which is what I have in marker. You should have already had this pencil line that goes across here. That's the first thing you should have done, because without this, you won't be able to put the head in the right spot. Okay, so a few more seconds, and then we're all going to work on this together at the same time, hopefully, okay? So I'm just going to have you stare at that for a little while. I'm going to lower the music in the background. Found some Star Wars music on YouTube. It's pretty cool. I don't know if you guys can even see that. There's just some stuff in the background with music. The line is going to be the top of our land. So from this line down is going to be brown. It's going to be dirt for the land. And from this line up is going to be the sky. But the reason why we need to have that line there is because we need to know where his head is going to go on this painting. So this line that represents the top of the land also serves, what do you call it? It kind of just tells you where the head needs to go, if that makes any sense. Okay, so we're all going to get started. We're all going to do this at the same time now. The first thing we're going to work on, and again, you're going to see me using my marker. I do not want anyone using marker right now. You guys at home should only be using pencil. I'm the only one that's using a marker, okay? So a pencil and a really good eraser. We're going to start with a mouth. So I'm going to turn this around and I'm going to trace the mouth and hold it up so you can see, okay? So you want to keep his mouth towards the bottom of his head, okay? So you can see how I kept the mouth a little bit lower, kind of where your mouth is. And it kind of looks like a sad face a little bit. You don't want to make it super curvy because you don't want him to look too sad. But it's also like it curves down a little bit. So he's kind of like serious or he's thinking about something. So give him a mouth. Okay. So the next thing we're going to work on is going to be his nose. If you notice, his nose is not exactly in the middle of his head. The middle of the head would be right here where my finger is. So that would be the middle. So we want his nose a little bit lower than the middle. So not in the middle, which would be here. A tiny bit lower than the middle for his nose. So let me trace that. Okay. You can see my fingerprint from me touching that. So again, find the middle of the face and go a tiny bit lower, and that's where you want to put his cute little nose. I know some of you work at different paces, so some of you might be fast and waiting for me to do the next one. The others might still be behind. So I'm going to try to work at a good pace. Hopefully it works out. I unfortunately can't wait for everyone to catch up. So in that case, if you're falling too behind, you might be better off waiting until I'm done and then going back and watching the video once it's posted, and you guys can pause it and do it at your own pace. So let's work on the eyes next. So we're going to start by making the bottom of the eyes. If you look closely, the bottom of the eyes are lined up with the nose, okay? So we're going to make two long lines because we want his eyes to be pretty big. We want nice big eyes. So we're going to make two long lines that are lined up with the nose. So let me turn around and trace those. Okay. So two long lines, and they're kind of lined up with the nose. So work on that. Now, for the top of the eyes, if you look at the eyes, they're pretty much similar to the shape of the head that we just made, okay, except this line isn't straight. But if you, other than that, we're just going to make a really big curve, kind of like when we made the head. So for the eyes, make two big curves, kind of like you're making the top of a rainbow. So let me trace those so you can see them better. So again, for the top of the eyes, make a really big curve. We want nice big eyes. And that's what your eyes should look like. Very similar to the shape of his head that we made, except the lines on the bottom are more straight. Okay. We're just going to make a big circle in the middle. Make it big. So make big circles inside the eyes like this. He's going to look really weird until he's painted and he has all his little details. Okay, good. So the next thing we're going to work on are going to be his ears. Okay, and then we'll go back to the face. I just want to get those ears done because they're so cute. So I made these a little bit shorter. You can make them longer if you want. So it's going to be up to you how long you want Baby Yoda's ears to be. Mine are a little bit on the shorter side, but again, if you want them to be longer, you're just going to make this top line a little bit longer. So you're going to start the ears right above the top of the eyes. So if you look at the top of my eyes, it's right here. And the top of my ears is kind of in the same area. So we're going to start the ears there. Let me turn this around and trace that line first so you can see. And again, you can make this line a little bit longer if you want your ears to be bigger. So you're going to start by making 2 lines, one on each side, a little bit above the top of your eyes. So it's going to be kind of straight, just like that. Again, you can make them a little bit longer if you want your Yoda's ears to be longer than mine. So this line will determine how big his ears are going to be. So if you make this line too short, he's going to have tiny ears. So if you make this line longer, he's going to have nice big ears, okay? And then what we're going to do, we're going to make a curved line and connect it to the bottom of his head. Make sure the ears connect to the bottom of his head, which is right here. So you're going to start at this part of the line, make a curved line and connect it to the bottom of the head. So I'm going to go trace that now for you. Okay, so here we go. So I went to the end of my line and I made a curvy line that connects to the bottom of his head on both sides. So now you can actually see how big his ears are. If you want them to be bigger, if you want them to be smaller, or you just don't like how the shape came out, now is the time to go back and fix them before we do this next part. So adjust your ears now before we do the next part. Okay, so hopefully that was enough time for everyone to adjust their ears. So what we're going to do now is this is going to be like that flap of skin on the ear. This is going to be green like his face, and then this is going to end up being like the inside of the ear. So we're going to go back up here to the tip of the ear, and we're going to make a curvy line that's almost in the middle. So if you look carefully, this isn't quite in the middle of his ears, but I start here and I start going down towards the middle of the ear. Same thing on that side, okay? So let me trace those. So once again, I'm going to the tip of the ear, and I'm coming down as if I'm almost going to the middle, but it's a little bit higher than the middle, but really close. It's almost like in the middle. And that's going to be it for the ears. I'm going to give you guys a few more seconds to finish up his ears. You can always go back and fix them. That's why we're doing all of this in pencil first. And then we're going to go back to add the details on his face. It's very important he has all those little curves and lines on his face, or else it really won't look like a Yoda at all. So he's got a few. He's got some lines that look like eyebrows. They're not really eyebrows. They're more like folds above his eyes. And then he's got little sideways lines where his like temple area would be. And then in the picture that I posted, he only had like 2. But I think it looks better by adding 3. It looks more like Yoda with a 3rd line in the middle. So I added that line in the middle. I think it looks better, but that's up to you. In the picture, they only had the 2 side ones. I added that third one in the middle. So let's start with the ones that look like eyebrows. You want to keep them really close. You don't want to put these lines too high because then you won't have enough room to add all these other lines. So keep these curved lines that I'm going to trace next really close to the top of the eye. Okay, so here we go. So like I said, they kind of look like eyebrows, but they're not eyebrows. So you don't want to go too high with these. Keep them pretty low, right above the top of your eyes, okay? So do those first. Then we're going to make 2 very small ones, like kind of sideways, like way over here. So let me trace those. So 2 very small lines right off to the side. So here and here. Keep them way off to the side. And they're little, they're not big lines. He looks so sad. Okay. Now again, like I said, in the picture, they only had these two outer lines, but I personally think it looks better by adding a third one. So I'll leave that up to you if you want to do 3 or 2. I'm going to do 3. So I'm going to start with the middle line first. So I'm going to make a straight line in the middle, right on his forehead, right there. Okay, so now we're going to do another curve on each side of that line. So this line isn't going to be straight. It's going to be a little bit curvy. Okay? So we had the one in the middle, and now we're going to go back and add some on the side. So this one curves this way, and then this one curves the opposite way. So let's make sure we have all of this, okay? So we have the head, we made the mouth, we made the little nose, we gave him really big eyes, we made a circle in the eyes, and then we made a little line above that looks like an eyebrow, but it's not. Then we made 2 little lines up here on the sides, and then we made a line in the middle and 2 curvy lines on the side. And of course we have the ears, okay? So we're gonna move on to his clothes now. So remember that big line, the wavy line that I had you make all the way across? So what's gonna happen now is if you look closely, he has like a big, almost like a turtleneck shape, okay? So you see that big turtleneck shape? And that wavy line is in the center of it. So when you're drawing this big turtleneck shape that we're gonna do next, you want it to go past that line. So you're gonna want it to go underneath this wavy line that we made. So let me trace that in marker. So again, before you draw this next thing, I'm going to explain it again. So just listen for now, okay? So remember that wavy line that we made. Now we're going to make that turtleneck looking part of his outfit. So we're going to start on the side of his head right here. So find the end of his head and make a curvy line. And we want that curvy line to go underneath this line that we made. So make this curvy line go underneath the wavy line that goes across the whole thing, and do the same thing on the other side, okay? So you should have that long wavy line going through your turtleneck thing. I don't know what that's called, collar. I'm just going to call it a turtleneck thing, but I guess it would be like a really big collar. Okay, so if I back it up, that long wavy line that we all should have, you want this curvy line to go past it, go underneath it a little bit on both sides, and make sure it starts on the outside of the head. Once you have that in place, we're going to connect the bottom of that. So let me do that so you can see. Okay. So you're going to connect it now at the bottom. It's a really big collar, so it's supposed to look funny like that. Okay, so back to that. So now what I want everyone to do is I want you to grab your eraser, find an eraser, and that line that's going through your collar or turtleneck thingy, that line that's in here, you're going to erase it, okay? So let me see if I can do that. So we're going to erase this line, the pencil line that's going through there. Not the lines on the side, that stays there. Just the one that's inside of the turtleneck thing. Okay, so if you look closely, the line is gone. I erased the line that was in there. But I left the lines on the side. Don't erase those. Leave those there. Just the line that was in here. Okay? So now we're going to work on the rest of his clothes. So it almost looks like a dress, but he's not wearing a dress. I don't know if it's called like a gown or something. I forget what it's called. Somebody told me at one of the paint nights. I just can't remember what it's called. But he's not wearing a dress. But if you look closely, the dress doesn't start on the outside of the collar, okay? The dress starts inside a little bit. So this dress part isn't as wide as the collar. Very important. So I want you to see that, okay? So what we're going to do, let me put this down and then I'll trace the lines and then I'll explain again. Okay. So just listen really quick. Cloak. Yes, thank you, Goretti. It's called a cloak. I don't know why. I can't remember that. That's what I'm wearing right now as well. Okay. So again, before you start drawing, just listen for a sec, okay? So the cloak part is not starting at the end of the collar here. You see how it's not lined up? We're going to go in just a little bit. You're not going to go in too much because then you'll make them too skinny, okay? Thank you. Yes, it's a cloak. I don't know why I can't remember that. So you're going to go in just a little bit. Same thing on both sides. Make sure it's about the same amount of space. And then you're going to make 2 lines. Remember, Baby Yoda is really short. So you don't want to make these lines too long. You see how I didn't go all the way down? If I went all the way down with this line, it would make him look like he was tall. And Baby Yoda is not tall. So make 2 lines, but don't make them super long because he's literally short, okay? So then once you have those lines in place and the length that you want, then we're going to connect them. And it doesn't, the line on the bottom, it shouldn't be perfectly straight because a cloak kind of moves around and it's not straight, okay? So you want your line to be a little bit crooked on purpose. So you see how when I connected it, it's not perfectly straight? I did that on purpose. It's like I'm playing peekaboo underneath the picture. Okay, so that was easy, right? Now we're going to add some details. I don't know if you guys can see those pencil marks. So when the cloak moves around, it has like folds in it and like wrinkles. So we're going to add those. So the ones on the outside are going to be smaller, and then the ones on the inside are going to be longer. So let me trace just the short ones first. Okay. So these are shorter, okay? So don't make these too long, okay? Because then we're going to add long ones after it. So start with the 2 short ones on the outside. And then we're going to add 2 longer ones. See, you can see that better now? So short ones on the outside and 2 longer ones on the inside. Perfect. So I'll give you guys a few seconds to catch up on that, and then we're going to work on the arms. While you're doing that, I'm going to fix his hands, because this is how they drew them. I don't know why they didn't just give him 3 fingers, because that's like super easy to do. So I'm going to erase his hands really quick, and I'll be right back. So you're just doing those little folds. Okay, I'm back. There we go. So anyway, we're going to work on his arms now. So his arms, the sleeves have 2 sections. The first section goes till about here where my finger is. And then we go back and add like, you know when you fold up your sleeves, the cuffs? So we're going to add cuffs and they kind of stick out a little bit. And then we're going to add the hands. So we're going to start by doing the top of the arms, which start under this collar, the turtleneck thing that I keep calling it. I make up my own stuff, you know. Okay. So again, we're starting right here. So this is the part that's lined up with that. Make his arms, part of his arms anyway, right here. And then attach it to the body, to the cloak. We'll see if I remember that next time. And then after you do that, we're going to add cuffs. The cuffs are going to stick out the side a little bit. They look like big rectangles almost. So I'm going to go back now and I'm going to add cuffs. So it looks like two big rectangles that stick out the side. Okay, so if you look closely, I added like a rectangle at the bottom of each arm. Those are the cuffs. And you want it to kind of stick out a little bit. Okay. And then the way they had the hands, it was cute, but it's easy enough to do his hands the right way. So I figured, why not do his hands with 3 fingers? Because I think we can all do that. If they were difficult hands, then that's a whole different story. But they're easy enough. So I believe, if I'm wrong, please let me know. But I believe Yoda has 3 fingers. So we're going to give him 3 fingers. If you want to look that up first, go right ahead. But I'm giving my Yoda 3 fingers. I'm going to trace them so you can see them better. There we go. So again, if you're not sure, look it up first, but I believe he has 3 fingers. Okay. So double check, make sure that you didn't forget to do anything. You can give him feet if you want, but if you look up Baby Yoda in all of the pictures, it honestly doesn't really show his feet because the gown is so, not gown, oops, cloak, almost got me. The cloak is so long and he's so little that the cloak covers his feet. But if you want to add feet, you can go right ahead. I'm assuming he has 3 toes, but again, I don't know that. So that's up to you if you want to add that and do it your own way. But I'm not going to give him any feet or toes showing because, again, Baby Yoda is really tiny and this cloak is long. It's supposed to be covering his feet, okay? So we're going to go back up here now. So this line, make sure your line for your land is still there. What I need you guys to all do now is find a black marker. It doesn't have to be a name brand. I don't even use Sharpies because, in my opinion, they're too expensive to be using on a canvas. The canvas like sucks up the ink. So I'm not going to go spend all that money on a Sharpie, but if that's what you have, use it. I just use Amazon brand markers. They just make sure they're permanent because if they're not permanent, they're going to smudge. So any black marker that's permanent. And what you're going to do, you're going to trace your entire Yoda. Do not trace the land. If you noticed, I did not trace my land. So make your painting or your drawing, if you're doing it on paper, make it look like this by tracing it in black marker. And don't trace the land, because I didn't trace my land either, okay? All right, so it looks like we've confirmed that Baby Yoda, yes, he does have 3 fingers on each hand. Very good. So trace your Baby Yoda. So I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to do that. A lot of people that love Star Wars. I'm going to put this down because everything you have should be drawn out already. You should be just tracing right now. So while the kids are doing that, let's make sure we have all the supplies we need so we can start painting when they're done. So you're going to need a paper plate to put your paint on. Unless you're using crayons or markers, then just grab those. But if you're using acrylic paint, which is the kind I'm using, you need a paper plate. You're going to need a plastic bin or cup. Make sure it's something that you're not going to use again to put food or drinks in, something old or something that you can throw away. You want to put a little bit of water in it. You don't want freezing water and you don't want super hot water. Something in the middle is fine. And then you want a small brush, okay? You also need a paper towel or a napkin because you're going to need to dry your brush before you put it in the paint. So paper towel and a napkin. And now I'm going to go over some of the colors that you're going to need as well, okay? So you're going to need lots of white paint. You don't need a big bottle like this, but make sure you have a good amount of white paint. Okay, I'm missing a color. I might have to go downstairs and grab something. But you need brown. I don't know what happened to my brown paint, but I might go down there and grab that real quick. You need brown. You're going to need green. This is kind of like almost like a lime green. It's called apple tart, this one. But if you don't have lime green, what you're going to do is you're going to take a darker green and a yellow, and you're going to mix those together to make like a lime green, okay? So if you don't have a color like this for Yoda, you just take a dark green and a yellow and you mix them, and it'll be pretty close to this color, okay? And then the other colors that you're going to need are going to be blue for your sky. And then the other color that you're going to need, I know it sounds really weird. You're probably wondering there's no orange on this painting. But the bottom part of Yoda's ears is like a peachy color. So you're going to need a little bit of orange and some white to make peach. And we're going to make that together. So while you guys finish up tracing and getting all those supplies ready, I'm going to go grab my brown paint. I thought I had it up here. I will be right back. And I'm back. I'm sitting in like one of those little what are those little kiddie tables? I still have the Lightning McQueen table, the Cars table for my kids. That's what I'm sitting on when I do these. I had to put like a blanket because it's a little uncomfortable. But the height of it like works perfect. Otherwise. Okay. So, is everyone done tracing? All right. So if you're done tracing, what I need you to do now is I need you to take your marker, either give it to your adult and tell them to put it far away and hide it, or I need you to take your marker and put it far away. Just don't forget where you put it though, okay? The reason I'm telling you to do that is because, and if some of you have been to my classes already, you know this, I always take the markers away before I give you paint, because there's always one person that tries to write on the painting with marker when it's still wet. And I think some of you already know what happens is you ruin your marker. If your painting is not completely dry and you start writing on it with marker, you're just going to ruin your marker. And we don't want that to happen because you might not have too many of these at home, okay? And some of the stores are closed, so we can't really go buy any. So take your marker, put it far away so you're not tempted to touch it, and then you can get it later when you need it and your painting is completely dry, okay? So I'm going to take mine. I'm going to put mine away from me as well. And we're going to start painting, okay? So the first thing we're going to paint are going to be the bottom of the ears. So this section right here on both ears, that's going to be peach. So I'm going to grab a little bit of white, not too much, just a little bit, because the bottom of the ears isn't a huge section. And we need to save our white paint for other things that are bigger. So add just a tiny bit of white and a tiny bit of orange, and I'll show you on my plate. Let's see, I'm going to pick up the phone to do this because if not, the paint starts dripping. I'll tilt it forward. So you want, here's the plate, you want about that much white and that much orange, okay? And then you're going to take your brush and you want to make sure that you dry it on your paper towel or your napkin. You never want to put a wet brush into acrylic paint. Sometimes you do, but most of the time you don't. So you take your brush that's wet from the water and you're going to very gently, you see how I'm being super gentle, I'm just pressing it down. You're going to dry it every time we rinse, okay, before you put it in your paint. You never want to do this. If you dry your brush like this by rubbing it, you're going to ruin your bristles and then it's going to paint really messy and you don't want that to happen. So always be gentle when you dry your brush. So now that my brush is nice and dry, I'm going to take a little scoop of orange and I'm going to mix it into all of the white. You want to get a peachy color. A peachy color is like a very light orange. Okay, so keep mixing until there are no more orange swirls. So let me do this again. So can you see that color? That's the color you want to get, a very light, or like a peachy, light orange, okay? So once you get that color, if you added too much orange, just add a teeny bit more white. If it's not dark enough, add a tiny bit more orange, okay? So now that I have the color that I like, I'm going to take that color and we're going to do just the bottom of the ears, okay? Just the bottom. This part's really easy. And you are going to paint over the marker because later, when this is all dry, you're going to grab your markers and you're going to trace over everything again. You'll never be able to keep up with us if you try to not go over the marker. It's just so much easier to just paint over it and then go back later when it's dry. So I just took that peachy color that we made and I did just the bottom of both ears, okay? If you accidentally put that color up here, don't freak out, just leave it alone. You can paint over it, okay? But just the bottom. When you're done, you're going to rinse your brush and you're going to dry it. That way it'll be ready to go for our next color, okay? So my brush is all dry and it's ready to go. I'm going to give you guys a little bit longer to work on your ears. If you are ready, you can start getting the next color on your plate. The next color that we're going to use is going to be the green. So remember, you want a shade of green that kind of looks like this. If you don't have one, you're going to take two colors. You're going to take dark green and yellow, and you're going to mix them together to try to make something that looks like this, okay? So work on that if you're done doing the ears. Okay. Now we're going to start painting the face, the top of the ears, and his hands with our green paint. So again, my brush is clean. I made sure I dried it gently first. I'm going to go into the green. And I'm going to start, might as well start with the top of the ears, since we already started working on them. So I'm painting the top of the ears green. Okay, just like that. Now, I'm painting upside down, so I hope this is coming out okay. Okay, so I started by painting the top of the ears. This one's a little messy. There we go. Then we're going to continue using this green. We're going to do his whole face. And when we do that, we're going to paint over everything on his face except his eyes. We want to go around his eyes. So what I like to do before I start painting his face is I'm going to trace around his eyes. So trace around the outside of both eyes first before you do the rest of the face. This way it keeps it nice and neat. So you see how I traced around that eye? And I'm going to trace around the other eye. Okay, so trace around both eyes first. Then you're going to paint over the rest of the face. You're going to paint over the nose, the mouth, and all the wrinkles, okay? We're going to fix those later when it's all dry. The most important thing you want to remember right now is to spread out your paint. I like to call them globs. You want to spread out your globs of paint, okay? So before you put more paint on your brush, spread it out first before you add more, okay? See, I'm spreading all my paint out first. Then I'll go get a little bit more. And remember, you're only painting his face. Don't accidentally paint his collar. That's not green. Okay, I'm almost done. Again, don't try to keep up with me. Do it at your own pace. Just listen. That way, if you're not caught up, you can kind of know what's next. Okay, so I did the top of his ears and I did his entire face, but I made sure that I went carefully around both eyes because I don't want his eyes to be green. But I did go over the mouth, the nose, and I painted over all the wrinkles, and we're going to fix those later. Starting to look like Yoda now, huh? We needed the green paint. So there's one more thing that we're going to do with green, and that's going to be his hands. So once you finish the top of the ears and his face, very carefully, because his hands are really little, you don't want a lot of paint on your brush, just a little bit of paint, and very carefully start to paint both his hands. Okay? Too cute. If anyone added feet, you're also going to paint his feet if you gave him feet. Like I said before, I chose not to because in most of the pictures you can't see them. So I decided not to give him feet. But I'm not going to stop you. It's your painting, right? Alright, so that's going to be it for green. So look at my picture and make sure that you did all of those things green. And when you are done, you're going to rinse and dry that brush. Our next color is going to be brown. So if you are done, you're going to get some brown. We're going to need a good amount of brown paint. So does everyone know a quarter? You know change, dimes, nickels, pennies, quarters. So we all kind of know the size of a quarter, right? So when you're putting the brown paint on your plate, you want enough brown that's about the size of a quarter. You're probably going to end up needing more, but for now, about the size of a quarter, just so you have an idea for your brown paint. So again, if you tuned in late, I'd rather have you kind of just wait, not try to rush and catch up, and just do the replay whenever you can, okay? So, hopefully that gave everyone enough time to do the green on their Yoda. We're going to work on brown. So again, you want about a quarter size of a quarter of brown paint. We're going to start painting the dirt, okay? So the dirt is going to be this pencil line that we made right here and right here on both sides of Yoda. We're going to take our brown paint and we're going to outline the top of that line. Okay? So we're going to trace the top of this line right over it. Go right over your pencil. Okay? This should not be a straight line. It should be slightly wavy because it's dirt or it's land, okay? So you don't need to make this straight. So that makes life a little bit easier, right? So trace over both your pencil lines with brown paint. Just like that. So now this next part is going to take a little time, okay? All this, underneath this line and underneath Yoda, if you have space underneath him, has to be all brown. That's it. Just plain brown, nothing fancy. So if you do have a bigger brush, you might want to get a bigger brush. If not, just use your small brush like I'm doing. It does take a little longer, but if that's all you have, that's all you have. But if you do have a bigger one somewhere, you might want to grab that or have somebody grab it for you. So again, I always like to trace around things before I paint big surfaces because I think it looks a lot neater and it makes it so you don't accidentally paint something by accident. Okay, so I'm going to continue with my brown paint and my small brush. And I'm going to trace around Yoda's body, but only the part of Yoda's body that's below that brown line. Okay, so I'm going to start tracing the bottom of his cloak because this is going to be dirt underneath him. So I'm tracing the bottom of his cloak. I'm going to trace the side of his cloak and around his fingers very carefully. That green paint is probably still a little bit wet, so just be careful when you're tracing around his fingers. See how I'm doing that? I'm tracing around his arms. And I'm also tracing part of the collar. But if you notice, I'm not tracing the entire collar. You need to stop when you get to this line, okay? So don't keep going up with your brown. You're going to stop tracing around the body when you get to the top of that brown line, okay? So now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side of his body. And I'm going to stop when I get to that brown line. Okay, so I just traced around his cute little fingers. I'm going around his sleeve. And then I'm stopping when I get to that brown line. So that's kind of what it should look like. Okay. Now this will keep it so his outfit stays nice and neat. Because if you take a big brush and you just start painting, you might touch his clothes. Okay. It's not a huge deal in this instance because his clothes are actually going to be like a tan color, like a light brown. So not a huge deal. But in other paintings, that might not work so good if you make a mistake, okay? So this kind of keeps it nice and neat. So once you've done that, now you have to color all of this brown, okay? So this is going to take a little while. So start painting. I actually have not watched any of the new Star Wars movies. I've only watched the really old ones. And I've watched the, what they're called, prequels. The prequels are, like when Darth Vader and Princess Leia were like really young, and it kind of tells you like how they be, like, I don't know, it was before they were born actually. So those are the prequels. I've watched those, but I've never watched any of the new ones. I think there's like 4, maybe even 5. But I haven't watched them. I will eventually. I got plenty of time now. And I have not even started watching The Mandalorian, which I heard is really, really good. So I might start watching that now, too. So, is there anyone else that has not watched The Mandalorian yet? Or does anyone know? Who doesn't even know what The Mandalorian is? Well, for those of you that have never heard of The Mandalorian, it is a Star Wars show. It's not a movie, it's a show that's on Disney Plus. And that's how come this baby Yoda became like super popular again all of a sudden. He's not actually baby Yoda if you pay attention. We call him that, but in the show, they don't call him baby Yoda. They call him the child. So if you end up watching the show, they call him the child and not baby Yoda. That's all I know. I have not watched the show, but I plan on watching it eventually. Now, who wants to tell me who their favorite Star Wars character, and it could be any Star Wars character from any movie or any Star Wars show. So I want you guys to tell me, while we're painting this brown part that takes forever, who your favorite Star Wars character is. And hopefully I've heard of that character. My dog's just running around the living room. He just got out of the bedroom. Okay. So we're filling all of that in. R2-D2, yes, everyone loves him. Who else has a favorite Star Wars character? Besides Baby Yoda, of course. Besides Baby Yoda. I knew people were going to say that. So, besides Baby Yoda, do you have another? If you don't have another one, that's fine too. But again, if Baby Yoda is your favorite, he's a lot of people's favorite. But in that case, who's your second favorite Star Wars character? I should have known better than to ask it the other way. Or maybe you've just never watched any of the movies and you just know Baby Yoda because he's so popular right now. That's fine too. Chewie, yes, Chewbacca. He's super popular. What's the other one? R2-D2 and K2SO? I don't even know who that one is, K2SO. Darth Vader. Very nice. Yep, he's very popular. Yep. Rey? Yes, Finn and Rey. They're in the newer movies. Like I said, I've never seen those, but I know who Rey is because one of my friends, she dresses up as Rey. Let's see. BB-8, yep, that's a popular one. He's the round one that he's like white and orange, right? BB-8. Yeah. He's from the new movies. That Rey, I think the movie that Rey is in, right? Yeah. I think so. Yeah. My son's in the background saying, yep, he's agreeing. Who's your favorite, Brady? Chewbacca. My son's favorite is Chewbacca. Oh, yours is Princess Leia. Oh, thank you. You're so sweet. I know. I figured I had the costume, and it's easy enough. I might as well throw it on, right? C-3PO, yes. He's funny. Is he in any of the new movies, or is he in just the old movies? Is he in some of the new ones, too? Yeah. No one likes Luke Skywalker? No one mentioned Luke. Luke's my brother. He's my twin brother. He's very popular. But he just looks like a regular human, so I can understand why the kids would like the other characters better. How about Kylo Ren? I know who Kylo Ren is. I know he's in the new movies. He seems to be pretty popular. Does anybody like him? He's a bad guy, I think.
He's a bad guy turned good.
He turned good, I guess. Oh, my son's ruining it for me. He's letting me know what happens.
Well, I went to the movie theater to see.
I guess he's seen a couple of them.
Remember I went with Leslie that one night?
Yep, so somebody likes Kylo Ren. That's cool.
I know.
Okay. So, you might not be finished, and that's totally fine, but I'm just showing you what it looks like when you're done with the dirt. There's a lot of dirt. He's in the middle of nowhere, I guess. So that's what that looks like, okay? Han Solo, yes. A lot of people like Han Solo. He's a very famous actor plays him, right?
Hey!
Harrison Ford, I believe, who was also Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is one of my favorite movies when I was a kid.
Oh, they need to eat.
Oh, that's why my dogs are going crazy. It is 5 o'clock, and they usually get fed at 4:30, but being home, we kind of forget what time it is sometimes. But the dogs do not forget. Dogs know when it's time to eat. All right, so you're all working on your dirt. I'll give you guys a few more minutes. Again, if there's anything you want to ask me, and it doesn't have to be a Star Wars question. You can ask me anything you want when you're done. So if you are done with this, you're just going to need to put more white paint in your plate because we need to make the color for his cloak. Because I think that's what we decided to call it. So you, if you run out of brown, you're going to put a little bit more brown, and then you're going to put some white. Because we're going to mix brown and white together to make tan.
Yeah.
Tan is a very light brown. And that's the color of his cloak.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Hopefully everyone is done by now. If not, you should be almost done, right? Perfect. Okay. So, I think we're ready to move on to his cloak. So, let me put this down for a sec. Let me show you my plate. I'm going to tilt the phone forward. So, I just happen to have some brown left over. If you ran out of brown, add a little bit of more brown to your plate, okay? And then I added some white to my plate, some clean white. So can you guys see that? So some new clean white, and then I had some brown. If you run out of brown, add a little bit more. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my clean brush. That's dry. We don't want it to be dripping. I'm going to take a little bit of brown and put it into all of that white. We want to make tan, which is a light brown color. You want to make sure that your tan isn't too dark because then it will kind of blend into your dirt, and we don't want that to be the same color. So you want to keep this a light, very light brown. Let me tilt the phone again. I don't know if you guys can see that. It actually looks lighter, I think, in person. Not in person. On the camera, it looks a little bit darker to me, but on the camera, it seems a little bit light. So let me put it on the canvas. I think you'll be able to see the shade that I made when it's on the canvas, okay? So you're going to take that. You're going to start painting his collar or that turtleneck area. So it looks, you know what? I think I'm going to make it a little bit darker. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to add a little bit more brown. I'm just so afraid to make it too dark because I don't want it to be too similar to the dirt color. I'm going to make mine a little darker. I think that's too light because it kind of looks like the ears. Okay, so I went back and I added more brown to my white. I want it to be a little bit darker. So let's see what we get. Perfect. There we go. So can you guys see the shade that I made? So it kind of looks like coffee milk. We are all from New England. And I'm assuming everyone here has had coffee milk before? Or it just looks like coffee with a lot of cream in it. So that's the color that you want to make by mixing brown and white together. And that's the color you're going to make his gown. So when you get the color that you're happy with, you're going to start painting the turtleneck. Again, you see how it's very important? You don't want this to be too dark because once we start painting the gown, it'll blend in too much. But it was too light before. I didn't like how light it was. So I added more brown to make it a little darker. Okay, so I'm starting with that. Oh, so yeah, I think my son was telling me that Kylo Ren was a bad guy, but now he's a good guy, I think. He ended up turning into a good guy, I think. But he used to be bad. Okay, so now I'm starting to paint his sleeves. And his cuffs. Be very careful not to accidentally paint over his green fingers. Okay, so I painted his arms, his cuffs, and now I'm going to paint the rest of his cloak. Once again, you're painting over those marker lines. When this dries, you'll be able to see the marker. As long as you didn't make this color super dark, which you shouldn't have, you should be able to see your marker show through once this dries. And then later, when your entire painting is dry, you're going to grab your marker and trace over everything again, okay? And you'll see that when I post my completed painting. So if you're not sure what to do with your marker later, don't worry about it. Just let it dry. Wait till I post my painting later so you can kind of see what I did with the marker. I kind of just I'll just go over and trace everything that we drew. It's almost like you're just drawing it all over again, but over the dry paint. Okay? So I colored the entire cloak that pretty tan color, what I'm going to call coffee milk. Now, in the painting, or the picture that I posted, what was I going to say? The sky is just like a really plain blue. It's kind of boring if you ask me. So I think I want to add some clouds. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. If you have some experience in painting, you can paint your sky first, and then you could add the clouds over the sky. But I know some of you are a little bit on the younger side. So for you guys, if you want to add some clouds, what I'm going to have you do is grab your pencil again, and we can draw our clouds first, okay? So let me put this down. You know what? Actually, I'm going to do mine in marker just so you guys can see. But I want you to do this in pencil. And you don't have to add clouds if you don't want to. You can just do a blue sky. But I want to add a couple of clouds so it won't be so boring. So I'm going to draw a cloud with a marker, and then I'm going to hold it up so you can kind of see what it looks like. Very simple cloud shape, nothing fancy. And then I'm going to put another one on the other side, like a small one. Okay, and then maybe another one like up here. Okay, so what I did, and you're doing this with pencil only if you want clouds. If you don't want clouds, then you're not going to do this, okay? So I kind of just went and I drew different shape or different size. I drew one up here, one a little bit higher, and then one like a little bit lower. So I just added some clouds in my sky. They look like that. So I'll let you guys look at the clouds for a little while. If you decide you want to add them, draw them in your pencil first before we start painting our sky. We're going to do one more thing. We need to do his brown eyes in a second. Totally forgot about his brown eyes. So for now, just draw the clouds if you want clouds. I honestly wouldn't do more than 3 because then it's going to be too messy, too crowded. Don't do more than 3 clouds. Okay? And again, if you're a little bit older, yeah, I guess, but even in the painting, they just made a blue sky, and it's not that dark blue. So if you really wanted to, if you want to make it a night sky, you're not going to use the blue that was posted either. What you're going to have to do if you want this to be a night sky is take blue and add a tiny bit of black. You want to almost make it a navy blue. So if you're going for the night sky feeling, take blue and a tiny bit of black, not a lot, and make almost like a navy blue or a really dark blue, okay? So I think the kids just want to do like a regular sky. So in that case, instead of it just being a boring, plain blue sky, we're going to add some clouds. Again, and this is just an option. I just thought like the way they had it looked too plain, so I wanted to add something to it. And I know kids like clouds, right? All right, so let's move on. Draw your clouds if you want them. And go back and get some of that regular brown. If you don't have any of the brown, we want this color, the brown from your dirt. If you don't have any left on your plate from mixing it with a white, just put a tiny dot of brown on your plate because we're going to do his eyes. Make sure your brush is dry. Grab a little bit of brown, same shade as the dirt. And this is going to look weird for a second. So you're going to paint his whole eye, okay? Because it's kind of hard to go around the circle. And the circle, the inside of the circle is going to be black. Black covers brown. So for now, it's going to look really weird. But you are going to paint his entire eye brown, okay? And just use a little bit of paint. Don't use too much paint. Okay? I know it looks really weird, but it's not going to stay that way, I promise. So do the entire eye, both of them, a regular brown, just the same color as your dirt. And just use a little bit of paint. Okay? So it's going to look funny for a while. We're going to let that dry. While the eyes and the dirt are drying and his gown and everything, we're going to work on our sky, okay? So let me put this down for a sec. Again, clouds are optional. In the picture, they just did a regular blue sky. If you wanted to do like a night sky, like she was asking about, then you just take your regular blue and add a teeny tiny amount of black, not too much. You want to make like a dark blue if you want to make a night sky. I don't recommend painting the sky black though. That doesn't look right. Okay, so this is the shade of blue that I have. If you like this blue, that's fine, but I want it to look more like a sky blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this blue and I'm going to add some white to it to make a lighter blue, so more like the sky. Again, if you want it to look like nighttime, you can take this regular shade of blue and add a tiny bit of black. So you decide what shade of blue that you want to use. So I want to make a light blue, so therefore I'm going to put a little bit of this in my plate and add white to it. So you guys work on your shade of blue right now. Put this on before I accidentally tip it over. So I'm grabbing blue and white because I want my sky to be a light blue. You can make your sky any shade of blue that you want. Okay. Make sure that my brush is nice and clean and it's dry before I start mixing my paint. And I'm just, I got my blue and my white. I'm going to mix some blue into that white or vice versa, however you want to do it. Just blue and white together to make whatever shade of blue that you want for your sky. That's the nice thing about art is you don't need to copy each other. You can make it your own by just changing little details. There's no right or wrong when it comes to certain things. It is your painting. Okay, so this is the shade of blue that I came up with. I don't know if you guys can see it, but you'll see it better on my canvas. So I'm going to start painting. If you have clouds, you're going to start by tracing around your clouds because we all know how I love to trace around things first. If you don't have clouds, then you're going to start by tracing around the top of Yoda and his ears, okay? So because I have clouds, I'm going to start tracing around my clouds very carefully. If you accidentally paint your clouds, guess what? When your sky is dry, just take some white paint, which I think I'm going to end up doing anyway. Once my sky is dry, I'm just going to take clean white paint and I'm going to go over my clouds. It'll look nicer that way. So for now, I'm just tracing around the clouds if you have them. Okay, so traced around them, and now I'm going to start tracing around Yoda's head, okay? Because we don't want to paint his head blue. So by now the green on Yoda should be dry or almost dry. So we're going to just take our blue, whatever shade you decided on, and start tracing around Yoda's head and his ears, okay? And go really careful when you're doing this. Go take your time. Starting to trace around his ears. Okay, to the other ear now. Perfect. Okay, so I traced around the top of his head and his ears, and then remember, part of his collar is above the dirt. So we're also going to trace, and if your brown is still wet, just be very careful. I'm just going to trace the part of his collar that's right above the dirt. Can you guys see that right there? So the part of the collar that's above the dirt, I'm going to trace around the side of that as well. And now, once I have everything traced on the top of the painting, now I'm going to go back and I'm going to fill in my sky with my blue that I chose. So my brown might be a little bit wet, so I'm going to start on the top of my painting and work my way down. So I'm going to start painting from the top and work my way down. That way it gives the brown a little chance to dry so it doesn't accidentally mix together. So we're painting our sky. I cannot wait to see these. Do me a favor, when you guys are done, once it's all dry and you went back and you traced everything with marker or you added whatever you want to it, take a picture of it. You could post it in my group. You could post it in the event. You could message it to me, however you want to send me. I cannot wait to see how these pictures came out. But you can actually post them right in the group. I do have to approve them. So after you post it, I'll get like a notification and I can approve the picture so it won't go on the group right away. Just because there's some silly people that like to post things that are not for children, so I don't let anyone post things in my group without approving them first. So that's why if you do ever post something in my group, you won't see it right away until I get to it. Let's see. So again, we're just painting the sky. Okay. Pretty, I like that color. This part does take a little while. You have to have a lot of patience. Perfect. So again, if you did have a larger brush, you could try using it again for this part of the painting. You just have to be really careful. I'm just using a small brush just because I know some of you work at a slower pace, so I don't want to go too fast anyway. So by me using the small brush, it kind of keeps me at the same pace. No point in me doing it fast and then just kind of staring into the screen, right? Okay. So again, be careful once you get to the top of your dirt. Be careful if it's a little wet, okay? Just go slow. So that side's done. Now I'm going to finish up this side now. And that's the nice part about this having to not be a straight line, because you don't have to worry about it so much when you're adding the sky. Almost done. I'm just going to do a little bit more on this upper corner here. Okay, I'm going to turn my painting around really quick because it's hard for me to see when it's backwards like this, and then I'll turn it back around. Just going to do some touch-ups because I can't really see when I'm looking into the phone that great. And then I swear I'll flip it back around so you guys can take a good look at it. Okay. I think that's good enough for now. I can do some more touch-ups later. So that's the sky. Okay. Oh, thank you. And we're going to do one more thing before we say goodbye. His eyes look really crazy. So what we're going to do, once you guys are done with the sky, and it's again, if you're not done, no big deal. This part's super easy. You're going to get a little bit of black paint, not your marker. Those markers should still be super far away. So a little bit of black paint. I'm just going to go grab myself some more water while you finish up the sky. And then hopefully by the time I come back, you guys will be almost done and we can do the rest of the eyes together. But you want to grab a tiny bit of black paint, okay? We're going to move on to his eyes. We're going to finish them up. You don't want a lot of black. You don't want to waste paint. So finish your sky. Clean and dry your brush. Put a teeny tiny bit of black on your brush. And you're going to color in those circles. If you look closely, you could still see the circles that we drew through the paint. You're just going to color inside the circle with black, okay? So I can't really do this holding it up, so I'm going to do it and then show you, okay? I'll do one eye, and I'm going to try to keep it looking like a circle. Okay. So you see what I did? I took a little bit of paint and I painted inside the circle. You're going to do that to both eyes. Finish your sky first and then go back and do this when you're ready. Okay. So color in both eyes black like that. And then we're going to give that a couple of minutes to dry. And then this next part, you don't have to do this last part if you don't like it. It's an option. So what that means is you can choose if you want to do it or not. I'm going to add a little white dot on his eye. And that way you can see what it looks like and you can decide if you want to do that or not. So you don't have to do it. So I'm going to get a tiny bit more of clean white paint. I'm going to blow on his eyes a little bit, kind of help them dry. You know what I'm going to do while I'm waiting for his eyes to dry is I'm going to add a little bit of white over my clouds. That's what I'm going to do. While the black in the eyes are drying, I'm just going to grab some white paint and I'm just going to make my clouds look a little fluffy. Just adding a little bit of white paint over my clouds. See? That looks pretty, huh? And it kind of covered up the marker a little bit too. Because I did mine in marker to show you. I'm going to grab a little bit more. Okay. There we go. So I just covered up my clouds with a little bit of white paint, make them look a little fluffier. Okay. And now I'm going to go back to the eyes. This is going to be our last step, which again I said is optional. So we're going to add little white dots to the black part of the eye, and you don't have to do this. I want you to take a look. You can either leave it this way or you could add the white dot. If you are doing the white dot, you're not using your bristles, the part that we've been painting with. You're using the end of the brush. So I'm dipping the back of my brush into the white paint, not the bristles, the back of the brush, okay? And I'm going to add a little white dot. You see how cute that looks? I'm going to dip it again. I'm going to put another white dot. See? So that's what it looks like with the white dot. And you do that by dipping the back of your brush into the white and then making a dot, not the bristles. So I didn't use my bristles, the back, okay? And then we're going to let this dry. And when it's all dry, you're going to go grab your marker and you're going to trace everything all over again. Make it look nice and neat. And then you're going to send Miss Casey a picture so I can see it and show it off to everyone. Okay. I'm going to let mine dry too. I'm going to grab a little something to eat while my painting dries. And I will see you guys really soon, hopefully. So here, take a quick peek at it one last time. Remember, we're going to let that completely dry. Then we're going to grab our markers, trace it all over again, and we're going to send me some pictures, okay? So thank you guys so much. I hope you had a good time. Bye-bye.